Hello everyone, welcome. I don't know where that was going there, it almost hit me in the face. Oof. Punched in the face almost, if you will. Is that a good Rocky joke? Welcome, this is my official ranking of the Rocky film franchise. I've never done this before, I've never done a video ranking all of the films of a franchise, mainly because it's partly a memory thing, if I'm being honest. Like, I always like to watch them all within one sort of time span to then rank them. I don't want to be like, oh, this one was so much better than the first one, and I hadn't watched the first one in like 5 years. I kind of, if I'm going to rank a franchise, I want to have just watched the full thing. So I'll do it with Harry Potter because I'm watching that over the course of a good 6 or 7 month period. You know, Star Wars can be the same. I can do Star Wars off the top of my head. However, when I rank the Star Wars films, I know it'll divide a lot of opinions, so that might be quite good to get some discussions going. But for the Rocky films, I posted a video last Tuesday, and it was me seeing the first Rocky film, the classic from 1976, at the cinema, and just about my experience there. I didn't really touch on the film too much. I touched on a few things that I liked, but I was more talking about the experience itself of seeing it at the cinema. And because of that experience, because it was so, good and nice of an experience, it made me want to go and watch all the other films. And I was lucky enough to have this. I bought this a few years ago, and it was always sitting in my collection because I knew this would happen. And I knew, once I watched the first one, or maybe watched the third one or whatever, then I want to watch the rest of them. And I did. And I watched all 6 Rocky films over the course of about a week and a half. The first one being at the cinema, which is going to be the last film that I've seen at the cinema for a long time, unless I go to another cinema. But my Cineworld, my local cinema, shut down for 6 months or something because of the demand of, or the lack of demand of films, so that's a shame. But I can go to other cinemas, it's not the end of the world, but that's the one I go to, and that's the one I've got my card for. And I feel like I'd be cheating on my cinema by going to another one, but, needs must. Anyway, so the Rocky film franchise I had seen before. I'd definitely never seen the second film or the 5th film before. I'd maybe seen the other ones before. I definitely had watched the first one, and I'd definitely seen the third one, and I definitely have seen Rocky Balboa before. I can tell you exactly where I was watching Rocky Balboa. I said this last week. I sat in the back of my car in like 2006 watching a dodgy copy on like a small portable DVD player. That's when I first saw Rocky 6, and I was just a wee boy, you know what I mean? Not a wee boy, but I was still in school. Don't even know if I had high school yet. I think I'm still in primary school. So that's a big, why am I watching Rocky Balboa? Not even see the first ones, in the backseat of my car. I watched wrestling or something, or watched The Sweet Life or Drake and Josh or something that I was into at the time, and I probably did afterwards, but that's just what you do. You're just curious at that age, and I'm still just as curious to discover classic films. So it was really, really nice watching all 6 back to back. And I'll tell you, in this beautiful box set, there is a bonus disc of special features. And there's some ones that I'm not really too bothered about. Kind of like older Blu-ray sets. You get like a wee game that you can play. There was that, and I didn't bother about that. There's a few sort of making of documentaries, but there's this really, really cool 27-minute sit-down interview with Sylvester Stallone. And it's so funny. Like, obviously I've seen Stallone out of character before, whether it's been on talk shows or whatever, in interviews. But anytime I think of Stallone, even as a person, I think of him as the Rocky character. It's that iconic, and just the way he speaks and the way he's kind of all awkward and uptight and stuff. And and especially after watching the first couple of Rocky films, seeing him as that kind of like he's a bit of a bum, he's a bit of a loser, and then all of a sudden gets all this fame and all this money, and it completely changes him, but he's still the same guy at heart. I just look at that as Sylvester Stallone, and he says that in the interview. It's like a lot of him in Rocky. There's a lot of him as a person in Rocky. The Rocky character is very similar, and he loves that Rocky character because of that. And he just feels like he can never fully attach to a character like he was able to attach to Rocky Balboa. And that's such a beautiful thing for an actor to say. You want that, don't you? You want an actor to fully commit, And he does that. Of course, he is. Sylvester Stallone, one of the best performers ever. But it was just really funny seeing him in this kind of candid, real interview, talking about the whole franchise. I think the interview was in 2000, so it would have been up until Rocky 5. And just seeing him look back at the character and stuff, and just talking very candidly. I'd never seen it like that before, and it really gave me a more appreciation of the character, never mind the films themselves. But in terms of my ranking, I'll go from favourite to least favourite, and I want to make this point clear as well. There's no such thing as a least favourite Rocky film. I loved them all. I loved all 6 films. I had a great time watching all 6. I'm probably going to be more biased to a couple because of memories and that sort of thing, and just significance to them. But I loved them all. I can't really say a bad word about any of them, really. I mean, I'd really be clutching at straws saying, oh, well, this bit of dialogue was a bit daft and it was a bit cheesy here and there and it was a wee bit predictable. I could say those things, but really, I don't really want to focus on the negatives when it's 6 films that I just loved and fell in love with the characters and the relationship. And I'm not a big, boxing fan. I'm a massive sports fan in general. I'll watch a big boxing fight, but it's not something I follow. I think, it's one of the lesser entertaining combat fighting sports. I'd much rather watch wrestling or MMA and that sort of thing, but I do enjoy the big sort of fight that you see, like a Mayweather fight or something I would watch, or a Anthony Joshua fight I'll check out, so in terms of boxing, it wasn't so much I was wanting to watch it because they're boxing films. I just kind of fell in love with the fact of the story and the characters and the relationships and that sort of thing. So my favourite Rocky film, if I'm going to do these rankings, my favourite Rocky film is, I just knocked the camera, I greatly apologise, Rocky 3. The third Rocky film is my favourite one, and no, it's not just because Hulk Hogan is in this film, and not just because WWE Hall of Famer Mr. T is in this film, but this film, oh, there's a white van outside, is this going to be a delivery? We might see a live delivery right here during the Rocky rankings. Oh, that's a great name, Rankin Rocky. That's what we're going to call this. We're going to rank Rocky. Let's just see if this delivery man comes to my door. Is he gonna? Yes, he is. No, going next door. No, he is. He's coming to my door. He's coming to my door. I'm going to play it cool. Here we go. I'll be right back. Okay, all is fine. It was just a delivery from Amazon. Hurrah. Nothing for us though. Nothing to unbox, sadly. Wasn't for me. Coming up to Christmas, you need to save up the presents. Rocky 3 is my favourite Rocky film. And it's just, I don't know what it is about this film. It feels like the most special of the films. You go on kind of the biggest journey, I think, with the character in this film because of the death of Mickey right before the fight, and then the fight, spoiler by the way, and then of course he loses the title to Mr. T, Clubber Lang at first, and then it's all about the redemption story. This is also the film with Eye of the Tiger, which I kind of talked about in that video last Tuesday, how I always used to associate Eye of the Tiger, that song by Survivor, with the first Rocky film, but it's not. Like, it's one of those Mandela effects with me. I always just assumed it was the first Rocky, but no, it was of course Rocky 3, and that opening with that song. I love music videos and montages and that in films, but there's something special about that opening with that song and the training and his fame, and him still not really connecting with the fame, really. He's still having a bit of a hard time with it. It's just so interesting, and then seeing all the footage of Clubber Lang just tearing through all of his opponents and stuff. You see Rocky as a proper champion. I don't know, it's just, it's the most well-rounded, full-on emotional Rocky film in my opinion. Rocky 3 is my favourite of the Rocky films. Number 2 though, my second favourite Rocky film is of course the first one. A lot of people will tell you can't beat the first film in any franchise. It's very, very, very hard to beat this first Rocky film. Now the first one had a lot going for it, not just because it's this amazing film and we are introduced to the characters and the relationships for the first time, but also because I saw it at the cinema. Like, that always helps the experience and it always helps the film. But there was just something about Rocky 3 that I liked a bit more. Maybe it was because of Hulk Hogan and Eye of the Tiger and the different sort of story arcs that go through the film, But the first film, man, it is one of the best introductions to a very distinctive character that I've ever seen. Because he's not just your typical loser turned famous guy. There's so much more to him. That even Mickey says that when he goes to the gym and he's like, why don't you like me? Why don't you train me? Mickey's shouting, he said, you could have been so special. You have so much talent and so much potential, and you're a bum and you waste it and all that stuff. And you see that realisation and you see him transform, and you have that first training montage where he's running up the steps and stuff like that. You see him struggling at first and he gets to the top. And then that first fight, and it's all about, and the way, like, I'd seen the first Rocky film before and I kind of knew what happened, but it was just one of those ones I'd forgotten about, that it's not a win or a loss, it's a time limit draw. And because earlier on in the film when Rocky says to Adrian, all I want to do is go the distance, it pure hit me and I was like, oh, it's going to be a draw. And I love the ending because it's Rocky that hits the last shot and they both fall, and that slow motion moment where the camera's on the canvas and you see the impact, it makes such a difference. And it's these moments that take a film from being great to amazing, and that's what the first Rocky film is all about. Seeing it in the cinema was amazing. Hearing the dialogue with the surround sound, which is, just the way Rocky speaks and stuff is quite, he's got a really closed mouth, and it's just that style of speaking, which sometimes is hard to kind of follow in certain films. I didn't really find that with the rest of them, but I thought it really helped with the first one. You kind of get used to it because of that surround sound and stuff. And there's a moment in that sort of sit-down interview in the special features where Sylvester Stallone's talking about Adrian, and he's talking about the person that plays Adrian. I'm just going to find her name. I don't want to be rude and forget her name. Talia Shire is her name. There's the moment where, you know, she's in Rocky's flat and or his wee place he stays. I don't even know what it's called. You know, it's so kind of run down and beat up and stuff. But she's the first time she's in there. And she's kind of freaking out, and she's like, this is not what I was expecting. I'm so introverted and so shy and so nervous. And then they get really, really close, and he says, I'm going to kiss you now. And he takes off her glasses and stuff, and it's the first time, this is what Stallone says, it's the first time that the Adrian character ever feels like another person loves her. And you can see it on her face, and Stallone points that out, and he says that, look at her face, it's one of the best reaction acting moments you'll ever see. Because it's just, she falls in love with him at that moment because he's in love with her. It's a beautiful moment, and you have this sort of kiss that's not sexualised, that's not cheesy and romantic. It's this beautiful emotional kiss, and he holds it and they collapse to the ground. You're not going to see that in other boxing, fighting, sports, manly films. It's beautiful. And then the moment they're on the ice rink and stuff, you know, and he's trying to just sell himself to her, you know, I just love it. What a great film. And that's why it's number 2, not number 1, because I just love the third one a little bit more. But now I'm thinking about it, maybe they're both on par, you know. Number 3, the third favourite is Rocky 2. This is going to get confusing, by the way, going through the numbers and the rankings. But my third favourite is Rocky 2. Very similar to the first one, because it's not like Rocky got his payoff from the first fight with Apollo Creed and is now just splashing all the cash. Like, that's not what's happening here. It's like he's finally kind of happy that he's done something. He said it was a one-time fight thing. He made a bit of money. He's no longer, you know, poor. It's all right with him. And then he kind of gets that itch, you know. And this time it's different because Apollo Creed is calling him out this time, you know, which is interesting. Before it was just this kind of, oh yeah, I'm going to do it as an exhibition and I'm going to do it to showcase how great of a fighter Apollo Creed is. But now it's, you know, it's now that Apollo Creed wants that rematch because of what happened in the first one. So I love that. I love the different dynamic of the switching of the roles, you know. And then the end fight is incredible, you know, the fact that Rocky actually wins the title, and at the end they have this embrace and they've become friends and they've gained each other's respect, you know. I love that. And it leads in, of course, to the Eye of the Tiger music video in the third one, which I love. Another thing about the films as well, which I didn't know, or at least I've forgotten about, was that they really pick off where the last one left off by showing moments from the last film. They show the last 5 minutes of the last film. A bit like Back to the Future in ways, you know, which I quite liked. Kind of, in case, you know, it had been weeks between films, they kind of kept you going, you know. Fourth favourite Rocky film, Rocky Balboa. Rocky 6, the one that came out in 2006. The one that I kind of always had a soft spot for because I watched it at the time, you know, this dodgy copy in the back seat of my car. But yeah, I loved Rocky Balboa because it's just it's a more emotional story, because it's now about nostalgia. It's about him trying to hold on to something he no longer has. He has these head issues, he's older, he's lost Adrian. I couldn't believe it. I don't know how I'd forgotten and just not put 2 and 2 together that Adrian had died. And now he's living on, you know, through her memory, and he's opened a restaurant. And it just shows you how personable he is, you know. And I said that for the first film, everybody knows his name, and everybody knows how he is and what he's like and stuff like that. But there's something about the sixth film, where he's in the restaurant and he's talking to all of his customers. And now he's just like this fun guy that everyone wants to talk to. Just like he was back in the first film. He has this amazing boxing career and he's made all this money, but he's still just Rocky that everyone wants to chat with and catch up with. So I love that. Still the same guy all these years later, you know. I just thought it was really emotional seeing the moments with you know, the grave with Adrian and that sort of thing, and I'm coming back together with his son, you know, his son being a bit of a big shot these days and not wanting to speak to his dad, but then he kind of comes around, you know, and he has this really, really amazing speech where he's talking about how you should be who you want to be and don't do things because you have to and don't conform to the system. It's really real, you know, and it's really eye-opening, which is really nice. There's some amazing, beautiful filmmaking in this film, especially in the fight with the colour changes and the flashbacks. And there's a moment where he gets caught in that Mason Dixon is the boxer's name who fights him, and he catches Rocky in the head, and there's just this like flash, this white flash, and it takes him back to Ivan Drago from Rocky 4, and just the brutality of the head injury, and just like, oh god, it was like, and then everything goes grey and you just see the red of the blood and stuff. It's just beautiful filmmaking. I can't recommend Rocky Balboa enough for that reason. You know, it's not just your typical boxing Rocky film. Now it's this beautiful story of someone that's trying to move on from this thing they held so dearly to them when they was younger, and his wife has passed away, and he's trying to reconnect with his son, and his pal Paulie's getting older, and you know, Mickey's no longer there, and Apollo Creed's no longer there, and it's just him with his wee restaurant, you know. And he meets this woman that he walks home in the first film. I love that touch as well. It's Little Marie, who he walks home in the first film and tries to tell her to stay on the right track because you could be someone special one day. And now all these films later, he meets her at a bar and they just become really good friends. Again, it's not sexualised, it's nothing like that, it's nothing romantic, it's just really emotional, and I love that. Sometimes it's so refreshing to see that. Next one, where are we? Fifth favourite Rocky film is Rocky IV. Going to be really confusing. Rocky IV is my fifth favourite Rocky film, with Ivan Drago. And the fact he kills Apollo Creed, I couldn't believe it. Oh, in my head, I always knew Ivan Drago being this really, you know, mean, aggressive fighter, but I just never expected him to kill Apollo Creed in the ring. You know, it was very, very dramatic, very, very emotional. It took a bit of a turn. I loved the what is it? Is it in Rocky 3? Is it Rocky 3 or Rocky 4 where they have the big emotional training with Creed and they're running through the beach and stuff and they're hugging each other? I think that is in Rocky 3 because he's getting ready for the fight against the Clubber Lang and stuff. I love that. And they're on the beach and in the water and stuff, and Adrian has that shouting match at him, you know, in the water at the beach. That's Rocky 3. So when, you know, Creed is killed in the ring in Rocky 4, it just took me back to that scene and seeing how they're like almost like playing like wee boys. And now that's no longer going to happen, and it just really affects Rocky, and it's really sad. And then Rocky goes and ends up beating Ivan Drago, and that's the bit you're kind of like, oh, it's a bit predictable and stuff, but still a really good moment. It's a really good fight. I love the way they film the fights. And again, I know I'm jumping about all the place here, but Rocky Balboa, I love the fact that even though filmmaking has evolved, so has boxing itself. So the way the fight with Mason Dixon and Rocky Balboa is, you know, different to the other ones. It's still a boxing match. It's presented as a modern boxing match, you know, with the crowd and the backstage shots and the nameplates and stuff like that. Really like that touch as well. But anyway, yeah, Rocky IV, great film because of Ivan Drago and the killing of Apollo Creed and stuff. Crazy. And then my least favourite, if you're going to say that at all, my sixth favourite Rocky film is Rocky V. I still enjoyed it. I still really like it. Tommy Gunn, you know, people seem to hate the character. I don't hate the character. I quite like the idea of Rocky taking on board this protege. I kind of like the Creed films, you know, which are great. I can't wait to watch them again, actually. It's kind of got me in the mood to watch them. But I like the Tommy Gunn character. But I actually would have wanted this film to be longer, and I would have wanted to see Rocky fight Tommy Gunn. And I was expecting, I was checking the time, I was like, it looks as if that's where they're going to go here. And there was only like 20 minutes left in the film, and there's been no training montage, there's been no agreement to do the fight, you know, and he's got this head injury, he's made this promise to Adrian that he's not going to fight again. I was like, there's no way they're going to work that out, you know. And it ends up just being this street fight at the back of in the back alley in Philadelphia where he grew up, and of course this is the film where he loses all his money and stuff, which is brutal, and it actually a point where I was just like, why? And it kind of made me sad. I guess it just proves that I cared about the character so much. But yeah, there's just something about the film that isn't quite all there for me. It's not quite as good as the other ones. I don't have this connection to this film. I do really like it though. I like the fight out the back alley behind the pub. It's brutal, but it's really well done, and it shows that it's no longer, he's not putting himself at risk in this professional manner. It just shows you that he's an everyday guy that can get into a scrap behind a bar and really, really be in trouble, you know. So yeah, I like the fact he was training Tommy Gunn. I like the fact that his son feels discredited and feels kind of left out, and they kind of come around at the end and stuff like that. He's kind of getting bullied at school when he ends up taking some of his dad's tactics and stuff like that. It's a good film, it's really good, but it's just not as good, I don't think, as the other ones. There's a wee bit missing. I actually think Rocky Balboa is closer to a Rocky film than Rocky V is, but I still enjoy all of them. So there you go, there's my rankings from my favourite to my least favourite of the Rocky films. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave your rankings in the comments. I'd love to know what your favourites are and what your least favourites are. And I highly recommend picking up this box set. There's a new one, or a newer one out anyway. I think it's called like the Championship Collection or something like that. This is the Undisputed Collection. But yeah, with some different special features and stuff. But I'd love to hear an audio commentary of the first film. There's an audio commentary of Rocky Balboa on this set, but not the first one. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. If anybody knows of any Blu-ray release out there that has an audio commentary with Stallone talking about the first Rocky film, I would love that. And maybe even Rocky 3 too, because that's my favourite one, of course. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you all next week. I'm trying to do movie chat every week now. just to kind of keep that alive on the channel, because it's one of my soft spots to chat about here on CM42 TV. So thanks so much, take care of yourselves everybody, and I'll see you all next time.